Hello, students. This is the fifth chapter of Unit 8, talking about the Spanish hegemony or talking about the Spanish 16th century. In this part, we are going to see the politics, the economy, and the society. They are divided into three parts. We'll see first the policy or the politics, the second, the population and economy together, and third, the organization, the social organization of Spain during that century. Let's start with politics. The Spanish kings in that century, the 16th century, were Charles I and his son Philip II, and they are very good examples of authoritarian kings. They were authoritarian kings because they directly exercised power. But given they had so big territories and it was so complex to govern all things by their own, they were assisted by secretaries or councils. Something like the present-day ministries, los ministerios. Given that they had so many wars, the army was very important for them. The army, it was very famous the way they organized it, and the Spanish army was organized into tercios because they had three parts: infantry, la infantería, artillery, the soldiers who fought with weapons, and cavalry, la caballería. Here in this mind map, I give you an example of the way they organized the monarchy during those times. As I have told you, the king directed himself the foreign and the domestic policies. It means the política exterior and política interior. Given it was so complex, he was assisted by people, that experts, the secretaries. He had institutions, the councils, ministerios. They were two kinds: territorial, because they were councils of just Castile, or just the Indies, or just Aragon, or just Italy. And there were other kind of councils. They were thematic or about topic, sectorial. There were sub-councils just of state, or just about the war, or just about the public finances, Hacienda, and so on. And the kings controlled the parliaments, the municipalities, the town halls, the city halls, los ayuntamientos, and they sometieron the privileged classes, the clergy and the nobility. Now moving to the second part, the population and economy. The population is the number of people living in Spain in the 16th century. It was a century of increasing. There were more people living in Spain at the end than at the beginning. They were 8 million people, inhabitants, and 6 of them were in Castile. You see here in this charter, in this image, that in that century it was a time of increasing of the population in all around the world. It was the same in Spain. Now moving to the economy in Spain had two sides. The first part, in the first parts of the century, when the economy grew mainly because of the wealth that came from America, and given that there was a growth of population and demand, as I have told you before, and given too that did came many metals, precious metals from the Americas, but that growth stopped in the middle of the century, given that the most of the money were devoted to pay the wars and to pay the commercial debts that the kings of Spain were having in Europe, and given too that it happened something very bad for the Spanish economy, that was the inflation. The inflation is the increasing of the price of the things, of the houses, of the food, and there was an increasing of the products during that century of the 400%. This is very negative for the economy. Talking about the economy of Aragon, it was a time of decline of the Aragon economy because it was focused on the Mediterranean Sea, and the trading activity moved to the Atlantic Ocean. Now I'm going to talk about society in modern times in the 16th century in Spain. It didn't change very much from Middle Times because there were a group who was privileged, and there was the majority of the population who were non-privileged. The privileged ones were still the nobility and the clergy, and they were privileged because they still had the social prestige and the economic power. The thing that changed indeed was that they were subjected to the king. Sí que empezaron a estar sometidos al rey. The second group, and we start with the non-privileged people that I want to mention, is the middle class. The middle class in Spain, it was very small. It wasn't very well developed. Their aspiration was to become a noble, to have the noble lifestyle. The case of the last group, that was the most of the population, was the third state, the last state. They were composed mainly by peasants. They worked in the countryside. They were farmers, and they could be the 70 of the 80% of the population. There was a social minority composed or formed by Jew people and Muslim people. In the case of Jew people, they were the descendants of the old Jew people. In the two cases, they were discriminated because they had been before of another religion, and they needed to prove that they had poor blood to hold positions, to have public positions.